Arm, yardies! It's the Running Pirate. And this, for me, is the end of a pretty special week. You see, I'm a student teacher, for those of you who weren't already aware. And my master teacher was out this week. He left me in charge to run the the classroom. And so I got to decide what exactly am I going to speak about this week. So, well, with lots of careful thought and consideration, I obviously decided to talk about pirates! Give you a little glimpse of one of my PowerPoint presentations there. So, I actually, this was something that my master teacher and I discussed, and he knew that I have a penchant for pirates, somehow, and said, why don't you include that in a lesson about imperialism, and go ahead and teach that as a unit to the class. So I got to thinking about how I could incorporate that, and I was reading about social Darwinism, and I realized, this actually would be a very interesting thing to discuss. So I put together a lesson this week that, in a nutshell, drew a parallel between pirates, imperialism, and the bedrock mentality, which I pointed out had a lot to do with social Darwinism. There's a story that I shared with the class with St. Augustine, a philosopher, and he recounts a story where a pirate was brought before an emperor, and the emperor accuses him and says, "How dare you invade the seas?" And the pirate responds by saying, "How dare you, sir, invade the entire world? I commit robbery on a single little boat, and I'm called a pirate and a thief. You, sir, do it with an entire navy, and you are called an emperor." And what the story is trying to draw on is the similarity between a pirate and an emperor. And I made it clear to the class, I said, look guys, this isn't fair to say that all emperors are evil, or that, for that matter, it's not fair to say that imperialism is outright evil. But what's the mentality behind it? What's driving it? What drives the pirate? What drives the emperor? And a lot of it is based on this: take what you can for yourself at the expense of others. Do what you got to do to survive. And so my overall question for the class was basically, why do people think this way? But is this a fair point? Is there reason for people to live this way? Is there reason not to? And so they recorded their answers, some of which were actually pretty interesting. So I've just gotten done grading this whole stack of responses, and I am ready to go home. But before I do, I just wanted to share with you a personal part that I really couldn't insert, because this is now going into my bias, my personal feelings on the subject. But I did leave the students with, should we live by a standard? Is it fair to say that only the strongest are the ones that make the rules? Might makes right. Is it fair to say that it's a dog-eat-dog world and every man has to be for himself because that's just the way it is? Only the strongest are the ones that make the rules. Or is it fair to say that maybe we should be living by a different standard that says we're all unified in that we deserve respect, and so we should give the respect that we want for ourselves? Is that a fair point? And some answers were divided on the subject, which is understandable. For myself, though, I like to tell you right now that I live my life by a standard in Christ Jesus. And the reason is because I know myself well enough, with all the problems that we have in the world, that part 2. Sorry about that. I had to restart the video. But to finish my point, I know myself well enough that I can't handle my problems on my own, let alone the entire world. So I've chosen to give my problems, my life, into the hands of somebody who can not only handle them, but can also handle the problems of the entire universe. He has everything in the palm of his hand, and that's a hand that took a nail for me. I figure if he must love me that much and have plans for my life that far surpass anything I could ever imagine for myself, his time must be worth investing in. He's probably worth listening to, just a little bit. So with that, I'm going to part ways with you, but leaving you with the question, what's your standard? Who do you live by? Yourself? God? I'll let you ponder that one while I go for a 10-mile run, because this is the Running Pirate, and I'll catch you on the next wave.